let's take a look at things for just a second from the converse side of the objections that may be raised toward doing the right thing, and it's invariably measured in terms of time and money. What are some of the objections that each of you have overcome, or that you would anticipate that others would need to overcome when addressed from that standpoint of prospective additional time and additional money?
I mean, I think there are a few things. I think the idea that a sustainable approach is somehow superimposed on the design process, or that it needs to be, I think is a misconception. I mean, I think ultimately, and Joe mentioned this earlier, it's just about really good design and thinking through things in a mutually beneficial way in terms of benefiting the client, benefiting the environment. Ultimately, and I think the second objection is that it costs more. I mean, there are things that you can do that would cost more, but in terms of, you know, a passive approach to a building, there are very basic things that can be done with regard to orientation and how much glass and where the glass is and that type of thing that are cost neutral in terms of the upfront costs, but in terms of life cycle costs are actually financially much more palatable. So I mean, in terms of the two that I can think of offhand, the two that I get the most questioned or the most objected to is that, you know, it seems like it needs to be an application to an existing process, which it doesn't. It should be organic to it, and that, you know, there are, you know, larger costs associated with it that ultimately are going to impact the project negatively, both short and long term.
And in the case of Dell, our client's board gave us a 6-year payback. Now, when I first looked at that, I went, my, how generous of them. You can do anything you want as long as it pays for itself in 6 years. Of course, when you look at it, there's only so much you can save on a utility bill that's going to pay for itself in 6 years, but nonetheless, they gave us that charge, and so we were able to do it. Now, in the case of healthcare, I think we have a fairly compatible client. This isn't like a developer who intends to flip the building in a few years and has no desire to particularly save somebody else's energy costs down the line, because that developer is not going to own that building and really doesn't care, or that is passed through in the rent structure, and there's no incentive for him to want to do that. In the case of a hospital, this is a place that, I mean, my gosh, I've done additions to 50-year-old buildings and renovated them, so that to say that a hospital has a 50-year lifespan is not a far-fetched notion, and you probably agree with me, Peter. Mm-hmm. So from that standpoint, I think it's a very compatible thing, but it's always hard to do the right thing when money's involved. And a lot of things about sustainability, I think, get a bit of a bum rap, in that people think that, boy, we're going to have to sit and shiver in the dark, and boy, that doesn't sound like any fun. And the reality of it is that actually, when you visit that project, you realize you're in a 500,000 square foot building, and the daylight, like we're enjoying in this room, permeates 60% of the non-exempted spaces where human beings are occupying them. Every single office in that building has a window. So people were just amazed during the design process that that was one of our criteria. And I mean, I get a window. And I remember going down there for the dedication and having people come up and give me a big hug and going, I've worked in hospitals for 30 years, and for instance, in departments like surgery, and have never seen the light of day, have no idea what's going on. So all of that stuff, again, really reinforces it. And in the case of Dell, I said earlier, we had the perfect storm. What we had was an electric utility that is cited as being the greenest in the nation. And what they're looking to do, there's a bit of controversy right now in Texas about coal-fired power plants, etc. What they're looking to do is do cogen plants when they have the compatible user. And in this case, they have a hospital with 24/7 occupancy. There's not a huge differential between energy consumption over the period of the day. So what happened is they came and built an on-site energy plant. The steam that would normally go up the smokestack from the turbines was used for absorption chillers to heat and cool the hospital, as well as all the other surrounding buildings, which kind of became their, quote, profit margin that enabled them to do this. It saved the owners $6 million. they were able to put most of that $6 million toward the other sustainable issues. So they ended up actually saving money. They had another couple of million they were able to put into equipment and other technology. The other benefit of this thing was you get very clean power. That outlet over there, if you put a voltmeter on it, it's very rarely at 120 volts. And that can affect things like $2 million MRIs and the computerization of this hospital. Dell not only gave the money to put their name on it, they also participated in the design in order to try to come to grips with the most fully computerized facility we could envision. They've already noticed in the first 9 or 10 months of operation that equipment is got a much greater lifespan. The technology has actually been affected. The clean power is really helping the lifespan and the maintenance of all of that technology. So again, all of these things tend to be win-win, and different things reinforce each other. But in this unique case, we actually saved money by going green rather than spend any money. And again, they specifically requested that the hospital not look very, very techy. We found that, for instance, high-performance glass actually works pretty well compared to sunscreens and things like that, and they were value engineered out of the building. Plus, we had almost a 45-degree orientation to the building, so we had lots of low-angle sun coming in on all the facades, as well as a lot of glass skins that were in circulation areas and other things where there wasn't the ability to put blinds and other things like you might in a private office or the patient room, for instance. So we found that performance glass actually worked pretty well for us in that case. And again, not wanting the building to look too techy. We did try wind turbines, found out we didn't have good wind resources, which shocked me because every time I swear I land in Austin, I think the plane is going to topple over from the wind. But photovoltaics, again, didn't quite work out for us because, again, the payback was a little bit too great. And again, we didn't really want the batteries or anything like that to store the energy, so we had to kind of use it live and in person. We thought about running fountains and other things with it, but ultimately with an on-site cogen plant, it really didn't seem to make much sense, and utility was better spending some of the grant money they give for PVs on places that don't have the benefit of a on-site electric plant. But the savings of that plant, by the way, was 29% of the energy. If you take a look at a coal-fired plant at a user about halfway down the pipe, because it starts to lose efficiency the further away you are from the plant, 29% of that 1 BTU lump of coal into an existing coal-fired plant, ours gives 79% for that 1 BTU of natural gas. Now, it's still natural gas, it's still a fossil fuel, and I know the AIA is promoting zero carbon footprint buildings. I think hospitals will probably be the last on the line to ever get to that point, just because of their enormous energy consumption. But nonetheless, it's still, when you look at that, it's close to tripling the effective use of that 1 BTU coming in by having that, and again, this very compatible user. So that win-win situation, as I said.
If I could add to what Joe just said, I think one thing to take away from that is the fact that for our clients, we're seeing the narrowing of the gap between the aha moments, and I think that's critical for the level of acceptance of it. We're seeing a number of projects be online for a number of years. I think our clients are realizing the benefits to their facilities, both in terms of, Joe mentioned the natural lighting, sort of employee morale, absenteeism, that type of thing.
Better test results for schools.
Exactly,
right.
Exactly. And for them, even some developers, the return on investment and being able to actually market their office space or their condominium building as potentially saving money for their clients down the road or the home buyers down the road. And the fact is, I think studies have shown that the buildings that are being built now that are not being built to some sustainable level of standard are potentially the dinosaurs of the future within the short term.